Jasmine Crockett, a young lawyer who took on the bench. When Judge Harold Thompson slammed his gavel and fined Jasmine Crockett for contempt during a tense courtroom showdown, he thought he had put a young, upstart attorney in her place. He couldn't have been more wrong. What unfolded next wasn't just a challenge to his authority. It was a revelation of a legal mind so sharp, so rooted in justice, that it left him rethinking his own judgment. This is the true account of how Jasmine Crockett, underestimated and undervalued, proved she was a legal force to be reckoned with, one no one saw coming. Underscore 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 underscore. A young lawyer with everything to lose. Jasmine Crockett entered Judge Thompson's courtroom on a humid Thursday morning in late June, carrying the weight of her client's future on her shoulders. At just 28 years old and only 2 years out of law school, she was already taking on cases few others would, working for a small firm known for its pro bono work. Her client, Elena Rodriguez, was a single mother of two facing eviction from the apartment she had called home for over a decade. Her landlord, Richard Grayson, a wealthy real estate developer, wanted her out to make way for a luxury condo project. Grayson's legal team, a duo of seasoned attorneys from a prominent downtown firm, had reputations for winning. Jasmine, by contrast, was still finding her footing in the legal world. But what she lacked in experience, she made up for with an unshakable belief in justice, and a mind that consumed legal texts the way others devour novels. Overruled, but not silenced. The case had dragged on for weeks, and that Thursday was no exception. Jasmine had stayed up all night studying housing regulations, tenant rights statutes, and case law. She was prepared to argue that Grayson's eviction notice violated the state's Fair Housing Act. She'd found a provision requiring landlords to provide relocation assistance in cases like Elena's, a detail Grayson's team had conveniently ignored. But getting her argument heard was proving difficult. Judge Thompson, a 63-year-old veteran on the bench with 22 years of experience, was known for his no-nonsense approach and his preference for efficiency over drawn-out legal debates. That morning, he had already overruled 3 of Jasmine's objections, documents she claimed were incomplete or improperly submitted. Each time, he dismissed her with a curt sustained or overruled, barely glancing up from his notes. By the 4th objection, Jasmine's frustration was barely contained. "Your Honor," she said, standing firm at the counsel table, "I object to the admission of the landlord's financial statement. It's dated after the eviction notice was issued, which makes it irrelevant under the Fair Housing Act." Judge Thompson interrupted. "Ms. Crockett, I've heard enough objections from you today. The document is admitted. Move on." Jasmine took a breath, steadying her voice. "With respect, Your Honor, the statute requires that all evidence must reflect conditions at the time the notice was issued. This is a procedural issue." "You're testing my patience," the judge snapped. "I've ruled. Sit down." But Jasmine didn't sit. She had seen too many cases like Elena's lost, because no one stood up. "Your Honor, I have a duty to my client to ensure this court follows the law. If I may cite the relevant statute." "Enough!" Judge Thompson's voice thundered as he slammed his gavel. "Ms. Crockett, you are out of line. I find you in contempt of court for repeated interruptions. You're fined $500, payable by end of day. If you'd like to double that amount, by all means, keep going. Otherwise, sit down." The courtroom fell silent. Elena looked at Jasmine wide-eyed. Grayson's attorneys exchanged smug glances. But Jasmine, though stung by the fine, felt something deeper, a fire to fight harder. She nodded once. "Yes, Your Honor," she said and sat down. A fine turned into a fight. Back at her small office in a strip mall shared with 2 other junior attorneys, Jasmine dropped her briefcase on the desk and opened her laptop. The fine wasn't just a slap on the wrist, it was a gauntlet thrown. She had faced tough professors, skeptical bosses, and dismissive peers before. She wasn't about to back down now. Contempt of court is serious, but not unchallengeable. She had 48 hours to request a hearing, and she intended to use every second. Jasmine dove into legal research, cross-referencing contempt statutes with judicial conduct codes. By midnight, she found her foundation. Contempt required willful disobedience or disruption, something more than simply making objections in good faith. She discovered in Re. Carter, 1987, A case where an appeals court overturned a contempt citation because the judge didn't explain how the attorney's actions disrupted justice. Then she found Pounders v. Watson, 1997, where the U.S. Supreme Court held that due process requires a chance to respond before a contempt fine is issued. Judge Thompson hadn't given her that chance. Armed with precedent, Jasmine drafted a motion to contest the fine, concise, factual, and legally airtight. She filed it the next morning, requesting a hearing before Judge Thompson himself. Facing the gavel again, this time on her terms, the hearing was set for Tuesday. When Jasmine returned to the courtroom, the air felt different, tense, expectant. Judge Thompson glanced at her motion and addressed her coolly. "Ms. Crockett, you've asked to contest the contempt fine I imposed. You have 10 minutes. Proceed." Jasmine stood confidently, barely needing her notes. "Your Honor, on June 27th, during the Rodriguez v. Grayson hearing, you fined me $500 for contempt. I respect this court's authority, but I submit the fine was imposed without due process. My actions did not meet the legal threshold for contempt," she continued, referencing Henry Carter. The appellate court ruled that for contempt to stand, a judge must clearly state how an attorney's actions obstructed justice. That did not happen here. She cited Pounders v. Watson. The Supreme Court ruled that attorneys must be given the opportunity to respond before sanctions are imposed. I was denied that opportunity. Judge Thompson scribbled on his pad but said nothing. Then Jasmine added, "My persistence wasn't disrespect. It was my responsibility. Ms. Rodriguez faces losing her home. I had legal grounds that could have altered the course of that decision. If standing up for my client is contempt, then I'll risk it every time. But it wasn't contempt, not under the law." She sat down, composed, unwavering. The judge reconsiders. Judge Thompson was silent for a long moment. "Ms. Crockett," he finally said, "you've cited some compelling cases. I'll admit, I expected a less thorough argument. But let me ask you, don't you think a good attorney knows when to stop pushing?" Jasmine looked him straight in the eye. "Yes, Your Honor. But a great one knows when not to." The judge nodded slowly. "Very well. You'll have my decision tomorrow." The ruling that changed everything. True to his word, Judge Thompson issued a written order the next day. He rescinded the $500 fine, writing, "While Ms. Crockett's objections tested the court's patience, they did not rise to the level of contempt under existing law." He acknowledged failing to provide due process and even cited Henry Carter, just as Jasmine had. More strikingly, he praised her. Counsel's command of the law and her commitment to her client are commendable. This court recognizes her diligence and expects it will serve her well in future proceedings. The legal community took notice. A local blog headlined the story. "The day a rookie took on the bench and won." Attorneys who once dismissed Jasmine as too inexperienced began calling her for advice. Law professors used her motion as a case study. And Judge Thompson? He gave her arguments more weight, revisiting rulings and allowing previously excluded evidence. The legacy of a fight well fought. Jasmine didn't bask in the spotlight. She went right back to work, focused on Elena and the countless others like her. But something had changed. She hadn't just earned a victory. She had earned respect. Judge Thompson, who had seen thousands of attorneys come and go, learned that Jasmine Crockett wasn't ordinary. She was a legal genius, not through theatrics or luck, but through sheer intellect, resolve, and integrity. From that moment on, her name carried weight. And in quiet moments, she allowed herself a smile, knowing that Thursday in June wasn't just another day in court. It was the day Jasmine Crockett showed the world what she was made of, one carefully chosen word at a time.